Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to this week's Picks Against the Spread, brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. If you feel like betting on any of these games, either with me or against me, you can, of course, find their link down in the description below. Enter that promo code, you get a huge sign-up bonus. But I kind of want to get to these games real quick because we're doing an extra game this week. We've got 4 games instead of 3, so we'll get back to MyBookie in a little bit because we got a lot of football to talk. So first things first, let's talk about the Colts going down to Houston to take on the Texans. The Texans, as of now, are favored by 1.5, but, truth be told, I would not fault anybody for picking Indy here. They're one of the hottest, if not the hottest teams in the league, so, the line is only 1.5 for a reason, even though the Texans do have home field advantage. The Colts are a legitimately great team, and they're also the team, if you watch last week's film room, that I least wanted the Texans to face in the wildcard round because they are perfectly equipped to beat Houston. That being said, I'm still going with the Texans here for a couple different reasons. One, the Texans are finally getting healthier. QT is back. Kiki QT, if you haven't been following Houston this year, he was a really talented, very productive slot receiver when he's been healthy, but he hasn't been healthy for most of his rookie year. I believe his first game that he was healthy early in the year when he first came back from his first hamstring injury, his first career game was against the Colts, and he put up, I want to say 10 catches, 100 yards. He was insanely productive, and whenever he's been at full strength, he's been a very good weapon for Deshaun Watson. So he is now full go finally for the first time in a while. I want to say at least 5 or 6 weeks. Vincent Smith is also coming on a little bit lately. He's one of their developmental receivers that they kept on after training camp. Really big, really fast, just enormously athletic prospect. So he's been having a little bit of success lately. Lamar Miller's been healthier. Deshaun Watson's obviously healthier than he has been all year. He's fully back from the ACL at this point. He's fully back from his broken ribs at this point. So he's 100% rock and roll, ready to go. So this is the first time all year that they've been almost 100% healthy on offense going against the Colts. The only piece they're missing is Will Fuller, who only played in the first game, not in the second. So because of that, since they are at full strength on offense, I feel like they can keep up with Andrew Luck a little bit easier than they did back in Week 14. And when you also throw in that Houston's defensive front, obviously J.J. Watt had an all-pro caliber year, Jadeveon Clowney had a Pro Bowl caliber year, Benardrick McKinney's great in the middle, Zach Cunningham's really good at stopping the run. Not great coverage from their linebacking core, but just in terms of being big and beefy and rushing the passer and shutting down the run game, it's a really tough front seven. So I kind of like that matchup for Houston as well. In fact, Quentin Nelson, who had one of the best rookie years for a guard I've ever seen, one of the few times that he really looked like he was struggling was against this Houston front seven, specifically with Jadeveon Clowney, when they kind of line him up at linebacker and rush him up the A gap or the B gap and give him those one-on-one with guards. He was really giving Nelson a lot of trouble. So again, I like that matchup for Houston's front seven. I like the matchup for Houston's offense now that they're finally healthy. So I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a really good game. The over-under right now is 49. I think that's easily going to be broken. I feel like this is probably going to be a 30 to 28 2-point game in the end. That's what it kind of smells like to me, just knowing these two teams, knowing these two quarterbacks. In the end, though, with Houston only being favored by 1.5, a 2-point win would still cover. So to me, just kind of looking at these rosters, looking at the matchups, I think the game's going to be back and forth all day long. Each team turns it over at least once, possibly twice. I wouldn't be surprised if Luck scores a touchdown with about a minute 30 left in the game, probably to T.Y. Hilton, knowing history, because T.Y. always scores in Houston. And then Deshaun, he's going to have a minute and a half left to go, and I think he's going to be able to get Kaimi Fairbairn in range for a game winner that also covers the spread. To me, that's just kind of how I see it going. It's going to be a really back and forth nail biter for both teams, and probably whoever has the ball last is going to win. So if Houston has the ball last, truly, I'm just kind of crossing my fingers at this point that they will. I do think Houston will win this game. It's going to be extremely close either way, probably a 2-point win or a 1-point win for either team, but I wouldn't be a true Texans homer if I didn't pull for them at least, one last time while they're still sort of favored to win the game. Again, it can go either way, but I both think and wish and hope that the Texans win this game. But man, I think we're in for a good one either way. Let's move on to the next game. We got Seattle going down to Dallas. Seahawks, Cowboys, another rematch in this wildcard round out of 3 rematches this weekend. This game is going to be a tough and messy one because to me, they're both statistically the same kind of team. They both run the ball, they play bend but don't break defense, and in tight games, they rely on their quarterbacks to just mount one good drive and put the game away late. That's kind of been their formulas this year. Run it, keep it close, win the fourth quarter. Seattle has a better coach and a better quarterback, obviously, but Dallas, to me, is the more talented overall team. And something to consider is that also both of these teams look a lot different than they did back in week 3 when the Hawks won the first matchup. There's no Earl Thomas, but Seattle now has KJ Wright and Doug Baldwin back this time. The Cowboys now obviously have Amari Cooper, who made a huge impact on their offense. And the Dallas linebacking core has emerged as unquestionably the best in the league in my eyes, with kind of the rise of Leighton Vander Esch there. So, with how both rosters are composed these days and with how they usually execute their styles of play, I think the game is probably going to follow a script that kind of looks like this. The Cowboys are going to ride Zeke early to get down into the red zone in their first 2 possessions. They'll use probably some really creative and clever play designs at the goal line that they've been saving the whole time just for this situation to take a 2-touchdown lead. And then once those are spent, Seattle's going to clamp down. For the rest of the game, they'll probably only get a couple field goals, and Cowboys fans will get frustrated by at least one long touchdown to Amari being either dropped or overthrown, as is tradition. All this probably sounds pretty familiar to Cowboys fans that watch the games every single week. And then in the second half, you're going to see the Seahawks offense make a couple adjustments and come alive after getting mostly shut down in the first half. You're going to see Wilson start making that comeback that we're all used to seeing by now. And next thing you know, it's going to be 20-14 in the fourth quarter with the Cowboys holding on for dear life. I would imagine that with somewhere around 3 or 4 minutes left in the fourth, probably at the start of a potentially game-winning drive, we're all going to be thinking the same thing. Here we go again. Here comes Russell. He's about to break their hearts like he does to everyone else. And that's when I think the Cowboys' talent advantage at all of the non-quarterback positions will finally take over and win the game. This is when I would expect like DeMarcus Lawrence to come off the edge and strip the ball from Wilson. Maybe we'll see Jalen Smith fall on it with some sort of freakish recovery as he's blitzing and doing his thing coming up the middle. The Cowboys are going to get the ball back and then they'll just run it down their throat with Zeke to close out the game and escape to the next round. That's how I envision all of this going in my head. It'll be the Cowboys taking an early lead, sputtering for most of the game after that, everybody getting really frustrated, the Seahawks mounting one of their trademark comebacks, and then finally one of the Dallas defensive stars bailing them out for the millionth time this year. That's how I all envision this. I'll probably be wrong, but if I had to bet on one outcome and one sequence of events, that would be it. It would be the Cowboys winning by 6 in a nail-biter that felt a lot closer than 6 points. But since we are betting and the spread is only -1 for Dallas, that's a pretty comfortable bet for me. Dallas is really good at home, and I feel like, again, that defense is going to make a play somewhere late in the fourth quarter that's going to seal a win that is not 1 point, but most likely somewhere between 4 and 6 points. Again, I would not blame anybody for betting on Seattle because, again, they're one of the hottest teams in the league, but Cowboys are no slouch, man. That defense is for real. It's a really good team in their home stadium. I would not be surprised to see them move on to the divisional round. They're a legitimately good team. So that brings us to the next game on the docket. This is the Chargers going to Baltimore for the next rematch of the weekend, the final rematch of the weekend. Baltimore is favored by 2.5 here, even though the Chargers had a significantly better record during the regular season. And a lot of that is probably because the Ravens just beat the Chargers 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, maybe? And I know that we like to categorize the Ravens as this slow-moving but still unstoppable steamroller that kind of painfully crushes you to death, but that's not really how they beat the Chargers in that game. They didn't win with their usual formula of 45-plus runs chipping away at the defense until they finally broke through. In fact, their run game really did struggle quite a bit in the second half. They won with big plays on defense and big plays in the passing game. Whether it was the 2 picks from Rivers or the fumble from Gates that kind of sealed the win with that defensive touchdown or the 70-yard touchdown to Andrews, the reason the Ravens won is because they made more big plays than the Chargers, and those big plays made the difference. The usual meat and potatoes of the Baltimore offense really didn't have that much success once LA adjusted to it. In the second half, after Lamar threw that long dime to Andrews, that was 12 minutes left in the third quarter. It's not like that was late in the game. There was still a lot of game left. And from then on until Baltimore's final drive where they kneeled down to finish it, The Ravens only averaged 2.4 yards per play and 9.5 yards per possession. Like, it was field goal, punt, kneel. That's it. Like, they could not move the ball. And really the only reason they won is because the Ravens defense played even better than the Chargers defense. So really for the Ravens to repeat here, it's probably going to have to be that same formula, which is different than their normal formula. They're going to have to let Lamar throw, bank on some turnovers on defense, and see if their rookie quarterback can outduel Phillip Rivers, which maybe he can and maybe he can't, but if Baltimore wants a shot to win this game, they're going to have to make that game plan work again. They need more big plays because this methodical grind of a play style that they usually prefer might not be the way to go in this one. Now, defensively for the Ravens, I think what will truly decide this game is if they can get to Phillip Rivers like they did a couple weeks ago, which means they're going to have their blitzes get home again and again and again, just like they did. On almost every pressure or knockdown or sack that Baltimore had last time, it was because they attacked the Chargers running backs in protection with blitzes and really collapsed the middle of the pocket and kind of didn't give Phil anywhere to step up. If Baltimore can do that, they can probably shut down this Chargers offense for the second time, and they've got a really good shot at winning. But it's not like Rivers is known as an easy quarterback to get to with blitzes in the first place, so relying on such a blitz-heavy game plan against him is very risky. We've seen it work once before, but can it work again? It's tough to say. I personally equate this matchup to the Drew Brees matchup from earlier this year, which I also did a film room episode on. And in that, I said that Brees was a phenomenal quarterback against the blitz, who's really good at kind of navigating a tight pocket. And if there was any quarterback that could go into Baltimore and win, it would be him. And then the Saints went into Baltimore and won. So I'm kind of feeling the same way about this game overall. The Chargers are a really hard team to beat twice. Not even Kansas City could do it. And I still think that there are a lot of matchups that go in the Chargers' favor here. Could the Ravens force another 3 turnovers and score on defense again and have Jackson find a big play through the air for another 70-yard go-ahead touchdown? Yes, obviously that's possible, but that's not really how the Ravens have won under Lamar Jackson as of yet. In all of Jackson's starts other than that Chargers game, they have a total of -1 in the turnover ratio, and they're -3 on the season, even including the Chargers game. The only other playoff team with a negative turnover margin is the Eagles, who also just barely squeaked in. So this is not a team that you can consistently rely on to win the turnover battle or to consistently throw the ball, and I feel like they're going to have to do both of those things again to win this game a second time. And when you also factor in that the Chargers might be literally the best road team in the NFL with a 7-1 road record this year, you can kind of understand why I'm a little bit nervous for the Ravens here. This is probably the last team they wanted to face right now in the wildcard round, and if they were playing against anyone else, I might feel better about it. But for me, I'm going to put my money on the Chargers to cover that 2.5-point spread. Like, even if they lose, I still don't think that it would be by more than 2 points. There's just, in my opinion, too much going the Chargers' way on paper for me to bet any differently. And I know that Ravens fans are going to be annoyed that I'm picking against them again, but if I picked them just to pick them, then I wouldn't really be staying true to my opinions. So yeah, give me the Chargers in this one. I know it's going to be a controversial pick. There's a lot of people that expect Baltimore to win again, but I don't know. I got a gut feeling that LA is going to pull this one out. I really do. So we'll see if that happens. But for now, let's move on to game number 4, the last game of the week. Probably the game that most people expect to be the most one-sided. I'm not so sure that it will be, though. The Bears are obviously an elite team, arguably the best defense in the league. Their offense is hot and cold, but it's not bad. And Soldier Field is an exceptionally hard place to play in the winter, especially when that stadium is kind of rocking with their first home playoff game in 7 or 8 years now. So I completely understand why the Bears are favored to win. And in a straight up bet, yes, I would pick the Bears, absolutely. But since we're betting against the spread, and the spread is 6.5 in favor of Chicago, I kind of like that for Philly. Like, if they're going to lose, I don't think it's going to be by a touchdown. I think it's going to be by, maybe 3 or 4 points. Like, I don't know if I would spot Chicago's 6.5. Like, that's a little bit rich for me. And the reason why, I understand that, Nick Foles is the backup quarterback and you never really know what you're going to get from him. Because we've seen good Nick Foles and we've seen bad Nick Foles. I get that. The defense has also been up and down for the Eagles. But schematically, Peterson and Nagy run very similar systems. They both come from the Andy Reid tree. They know each other really well. And schematically, I feel like the Eagles are equipped to go against Vic Fangio's cover 4 base a lot better than most other teams, in that they have a quarterback who is willing to mount the long drive. He's willing to, take a 10, 11, 12 play drive and not just needlessly take shots into arguably the best secondary in the NFL and get picked off. And like that's the key on offense when you're going against the Bears, is to be patient. Resist the urge to take shots. Just check it down, move the ball. They're going to give you the underneath throw. They're going to give you the underneath throw. Just take it. And I feel like Foles is, I don't want to say he's a conservative game manager, but in a game like this, you kind of want a quarterback like Foles that understands how to just work the body blows over and over and over again, and stop trying to reach for that big finishing left hook on the deep ball. Like, there's really no point in throwing the deep ball against Chicago. It's not going to work. So I think you're going to see a lot of checkdowns to the running backs in space. You're going to see a lot of checkdowns to Ertz in space. Maybe get the slot receivers involved. It's going to be a lot of quick game from the Eagles, a lot of RPOs, getting the ball out quick. And that is the one thing that I think can really frustrate this Bears defense. We've seen it multiple times before, whether it was, in the Giants game, in the Dolphins game. Like, if you work underneath and force them to rally and tackle over and over and over again, all it takes is breaking one tackle and you're good to go. It's a conservative defense, but if you can just break through that one layer of pursuit, you can get a really big play against this team. So I think if I was the Eagles, that's what I would do, is, screw the deep shots, just throw it short, throw it quick, be conservative. Whatever you do, don't hold the ball long enough for Khalil Mack to get there. Don't throw outside the boundaries where Kyle Fuller or Eddie Jackson can pick you off. Just work over the middle, work short, and take what they give you. If it means doing a 13 to 16 play drive, screw it, do it. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that. And on defense, again, it's going to be a similar kind of thing for Chicago going against the Eagles defense. You're going to see a lot of man outside. It's a less conservative defense than the Bears, obviously. The Eagles play more kind of aggressive outside, take a lot of chances. But they're not going to let you hold the ball that long. They're going to man you up, and if you want to take a shot and you're going on a 7-step drop, like, that's totally fine with them, because they trust their defensive line to get to the quarterback before the quarterback can expose their secondary. And for the most part, that's worked for them, at least when they've been healthy, obviously. So again, it's going to be a lot of the same thing for Chicago. It's going to be a lot of quick passes, rub concepts, the same kind of stuff that you've seen, the Seahawks do to the Eagles in the past, the Giants do to the Eagles in the past. Like, if they man you up, run rub routes. Like, take those slants all day. Take those, flanker drive all day. Like, the staple of the West Coast offense that Chicago runs 2 or 3 times a week. Just run that over and over and over again. Like, this is going to be one of those games where each offense has like 7 possessions, and they're all going to be super long. And probably whoever has the ball last is going to win. But the key for both teams is to resist the urge to take a shot, because both of these defenses are equipped to punish you for doing so. And so, again, it's going to come down to Foles and Trubisky just kind of driving the bus. Who makes the fewest mistakes? Who blinks first? It's a very close game by 2 teams. I wouldn't necessarily call them evenly matched, but in terms of schematic and key personnel matchups, like, it's going to be a really close game. So, again, 6.5 is very rich for me. I do think the Bears are going to win straight up, but I'm betting on the Eagles to cover. Like, that's a pretty easy bet to me. Probably the easiest bet of all these playoff games is betting Philly to cover. I really like that line for them. So again, as a recap, I am taking Houston as the favorite, -1.5. I think they're going to win by 2. I am taking Dallas as the favorite at -1. I think they're going to win by probably closer to 5 or 6. I'm taking the Chargers to cover at +2.5 and possibly even win that game. And then I'm taking the Eagles to cover at +6.5. Still taking the Bears to win straight up, but I do love that bet for the Eagles. So that'll wrap it up for me for this week. Again, if you guys want to bet either with me or against me on any of these games, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be betting on them anyway, you can head down to that link in the description below at MyBookie. Enter promo code Brett when you sign up and deposit. That'll give you an extra 50% deposit bonus to use to bet on these games, or any games for the rest of the playoffs, really, or even any other sport that's on the site. You can bet on literally anything. Like it's a pretty insane amount of stuff you can bet on. That'll give you, again, an extra 50% deposit bonus. It's basically just house money as a way of saying thank you for coming to the site. Thank you for using the promo code. Really, really awesome that MyBookie's doing that for all of our viewers. So again, check that out in the link in the description below if you guys want to bet on these games. Yeah, if I'm wrong, feel free to come back to these comments next week and tell me how much of an idiot I am. I'm sure a lot of Ravens fans are itching to do that after this weekend if I go 0 for 3 in the last 3 weeks against them. But hell, I mean, you guys should actually be thankful that I'm picking against you guys, because every time I pick against the Ravens, they win. So, if anything, you should, thank me. Send me a gift basket or something. But yeah, I'll be back later this week with another Film Room episode. I feel like I'm probably going to do this one on Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett. And then obviously I'll be back next week with another Film Room episode and more picks for the divisional round. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. And until then, later.